Halogen. Before we get to any of these, one thing explains all of them. Every headlight ever built has been solving the same single problem: throw more light down the road without throwing it into the eyes of the person coming the other way. That's the whole history, and halogen marks the modern version of it. A halogen bulb heats a tungsten filament until it glows. The problem is that hot tungsten boils off and lands on the inside of the glass, so the bulb goes black long before the filament breaks. So how do you stop a bulb from blackening itself? Chemistry. Fill it with halogen gas and the evaporated tungsten bonds to that instead of the glass. Drift back near the hot filament, and the compound breaks apart, dropping the tungsten right where it started. It's the only light source here that cleans up after itself. The catch is that this only works above 250 degrees Celsius. That's why these run so hot, and why oil from your fingers makes a hot spot that cracks the glass. Europe got them in 1962. America refused until 1978 because the law still demanded sealed beam units. You know them by their codes. H4 carries 2 filaments and does both beams. H7 carries 1 and does a single job. Around 3,200 Kelvin, that warm yellow anyone recognizes instantly, and roughly 500 hours of life, which goes faster than it sounds if you do a lot of night driving. But halogen survives 60 years later because it costs less than lunch and needs no tools. Pop-up. The only headlight here you can identify with the engine off. The idea came from a law. American rules demanded a headlight sit between 22 and 54 inches above the road. So what do you do if you want a low-pointed nose and there's nowhere to put a lamp that tall? You hide it and you raise it only when it's lit. It's the automotive version of standing on your toes to clear a height limit. The first was the Cord 810, patented in 1934 and delivered in 1936. And it had no motor. 2 hand cranks on the dashboard, wired to pulleys and cables, and you wound the headlights up yourself. Electric motors existed, they were just too expensive. For 70 years, this shape defined what a fast car looked like. Corvette, Miata, RX-7, Supra, Countach, Testarossa, the 928, the NSX. If it had a wedge nose in 1989, it had pop-ups. Then Europe killed them. Pedestrian protection rules in the early 2000s required the front of a car to deform on impact. But a raised headlight is a hard block with sharp edges, sitting exactly where a person's head arrives. No law ever named them and banned them. They just became impossible to certify. The last two were both 2004, the Corvette C5 and the Lotus Esprit. I'm not going to pretend to be neutral here. If I could take one car out of this entire video, it would be the one with the flip-up lights. Born from a regulation, killed by a regulation. And it's the only headlight here people put on their skin, because somewhere along the way, it stopped being hardware and became a cult object. Xenon. It also goes by HID, short for high-intensity discharge, and it works nothing like the two before it. There is no filament. 2 electrodes sit a few millimeters apart inside a quartz capsule filled with xenon gas, and the light comes from an electrical arc jumping between them, a controlled lightning bolt in a tube the size of your thumb. But an arc doesn't start on its own, which is why every xenon headlight needs a ballast. That box converts direct current into alternating current and fires a high-voltage pulse to strike the arc. The ballast is a starter motor, except for light. The bulbs get their own codes too, D1S through D4S, and they are not interchangeable. So what do you get for all that? Roughly twice the light of halogen on less power. The color turns cold white instead of yellow, and the beam reaches noticeably further. BMW put Xenon on the road first, as a low beam option on the 7 Series in 1991. The catch shows up in the housing. The light is so intense that an ordinary reflector sprays it everywhere, including straight into the windshield of the car coming the other way. That's why factory Xenon almost always sits behind a projector lens, and why a Xenon kit dropped into a halogen housing is both illegal and genuinely dangerous. Quick question: what's actually in your car right now? Halogen, Xenon, or LED? Drop it in the comments. If this is finally making headlights make sense, hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel. LED. short for light-emitting diode, and the first source here that doesn't burn or arc anything. A diode makes light by pushing current through a semiconductor. Nothing to break, no gas to ionize, no warm-up. It's on the instant you ask, it outlasts the car, and it draws a fraction of the power. So why did it take until 2007 to get one into a headlight? Heat, which sounds backwards because an LED barely radiates heat forward, but that's exactly the problem. A halogen bulb throws its heat out of the front. An LED dumps it straight back into the chip, which is why there's a small radiator bolted to the back of every LED headlight. The Lexus LS 600H got there first in 2007 with low beams only. Audi finished the job a year later, with the R8 becoming the first car where every function in the headlight was LED. But here's the part nobody puts in the brochure. Those diodes are soldered into the housing. When one fails, there is no bulb to swap. You replace the entire headlight, and on a premium car that runs into 4 figures. The shape is the real story though. A halogen bulb is a fixed size, so the lamp around it has a minimum size. An LED is a few millimeters across, so designers were suddenly free to draw a headlight as a thin slash, a strip, a signature you recognize at night from behind. Watch it happen on one model. The BMW 5 Series shipped with halogen as standard when the F10 launched in 2010. By the G30 in 2017, the standard fit was LED. The technology stopped being about seeing. It started being about being seen. Matrix LED. Once the light source is a grid of tiny separate diodes, an obvious idea shows up. Switch them off one at a time. A camera behind the windshield finds oncoming cars and cars ahead, and the headlight kills only the specific segments that would land on them. Think of your high beam as a wall of light with a doorway cut in it, and the doorway moves to stay in front of whoever you're passing. Trees, signs, people on the shoulder, all still lit. Every brand sells it under its own name. Audi calls it Matrix LED, Mercedes calls it Multi-Beam LED, BMW calls it Adaptive LED. Same idea, 3 badges. Audi shipped it first, on the A8 in 2013. Then Europe and America split for 9 years. An American rule written in 1967 said a headlight must have a separate high beam and a separate low beam. But Matrix uses the same diodes for both jobs, which made it simply illegal, no matter how much safer it was. Toyota petitioned to change that in 2013, and nothing happened. The fix finally got written into an infrastructure bill signed in November 2021, and the rule was amended in February 2022. So for nearly a decade, the identical car sold in Germany with a headlight, America was not allowed to switch on. Buyers in the States paid for hardware that sat in the housing switched off because of a sentence written before the moon landing. It's legal here now, but don't assume a car has it. The American rulebook ended up different from the European one, so manufacturers couldn't just ship the system they already had. It arrived late, and it's still on far fewer models here than over there. Laser. The name is a lie, in an interesting way, a far more interesting way than you'd expect. So what's actually coming out of the front of the car? Not laser light. Inside each module, 4 laser diodes produce an intense blue beam at 450 nanometers, and that beam is fired at a lump of phosphor. The phosphor absorbs the blue and glows brilliant white, and that glow is what leaves the headlight. The laser doesn't light the road, it lights a rock, and the rock lights the road. Which also answers the safety question, because nothing coherent ever reaches the tarmac. What it buys is distance. A laser high beam lights the road past 600 meters, roughly double a good LED. But it only ever works as a supplement. Laser handles the far end of the high beam and hands everything else back to the LEDs. On most cars, it won't even switch on below about 40 miles an hour because there's no point lighting half a kilometer ahead in a parking lot. 2014 was the year, and there was a real race for the title. BMW called it laser light. Audi called it laser light. Audi put it on the R8 LMX as standard that summer. BMW put it on the i8 that fall as an option. Audi took the title by a few months. Digital light. This one stops being a lamp and becomes a projector. Mercedes took the chip out of a cinema projector. A digital micro mirror device is a silicon surface covered in mirrors so small you need a microscope to see one. Each sits on its own hinge, and each flips thousands of times a second. The number is 1.3 million mirrors per headlight, more than 2.6 million across the car. There are more moving parts in one of these headlights than in the entire rest of the car. An LED shines onto that chip, and every mirror either sends its share of the light out to the road or dumps it into a heatsink. So what does that give you? A beam that is no longer a shape decided by a reflector. It's an image, redrawn in real time. At that resolution, a headlight can do things a headlight has no business doing. It lays guidelines on the road, showing whether the car fits through a gap. It paints warning symbols ahead of you for ice, for road work, for a lane you're drifting out of. Mercedes calls it digital light. Audi builds the same idea and calls it digital matrix LED. It arrived on the Mercedes Maybach S-Class in 2018. That's the point where a headlight stopped being a way to see the road and became a way to write on it. So which one do you actually want? Halogen on a used car is no disaster. It's cheap, and you replace it in 2 minutes. Xenon means a projector lens and genuinely good light, but budget for a ballast. LED will outlive the car, right up until it doesn't, and then you're buying a whole headlight. And matrix is worth having if you can get it. Just check whether the car you're looking at actually has it rather than assuming. And that's every headlight type, from a bulb that rebuilds its own filament, to a projector that writes on the road. Every one of them exists because somebody wanted more light without blinding the person coming the other way. Which type is on your car? And has anyone ever flashed you for lights you genuinely didn't think were too bright? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.